please, and we are starting. I see some more people coming. Please take your seats. High time we started. Okay, another second. Right, the doors are closing. Wow. Okay, well, so, hello once again. Very happy to see you here. My name is Світлана Сорочинська. I work for dental education as an academic consultant. But today, I'm going to be the MC for this event. That's why I'm kindly asking everyone to take their seats. All right? Good. And so, good morning. Glad to see you here. Welcome to the third forum for ELT professionals. So ahead, there are 2 very busy days with lots of meetings, sharing new ideas, experiences, lots of workshops, many fantastic speakers and special guests. But first of all, I think it would be a good idea to thank our key partner and the host of this fantastic event. And this is, of course, Kyiv National University of Trade and Economics. Шановні пані та панове, я дуже рада запросити до слова ректора Київського національного торгівельно-економічного університету, доктора економічних наук, професора, академіка Національної академії педагогічних наук України, заслуженого діяча науки і техніки України, лауреата Державної премії України в галузі науки і техніки Мазаракі Анатолія Антоновича.
Доброго ранку, шановні колеги, щиро дякую за тепле привітання. Для нас велика радість і честь знову зустрічати вас в стінах нашого університету. Ми з вами вже бачимо, що сьогодні відкривається третій форум викладачів англійської мови, який проходить в нашому університету і організовує цей форум всесвітньо відома компанія Pearson. Оскільки вже третій форум, вже можна підбити деякі підсумки. Якщо статистично, то за ці 2 роки участі в роботі по технологіях, запропонованої компанією Pearson, брали 1500 викладачів. На сьогоднішній день вже зареєстровано на ці дні участі 1200 викладачів. І це говорить не тільки про зростаючий інтерес. В моїх очах воно говорить про результативність тої роботи, яка проводиться вже не перший рік. Які можна навести факти. Перш за все, покращилося навчально-методичне забезпечення навчального процесу. Ось тільки за ці роки література видана нашою кафедрою, якою користуються студенти. Звичайно, використовуються електронні канали зв'язку. І головне, зросла зацікавленість молоді у вивченні англійської мови. В цьому році наш університет видав першу студентську книгу, тобто студентські переклади всесвітньо відомих класиків. Ще один цікавий факт. Як відомо, тепер, щоб поступити в магістеріум, по переважній більшості спеціальностей треба складати ЗНО з англійської мови. Так ось наші студенти в цьому році обійняли 3-є місце в Україні. На першому місці університет Шевченка, на другому Львівська політехніка, а на 3-му це наші студенти, це ЗНО складали і успішно склали 2150 студентів. Це знову говорить про результати роботи. І ось це відгуки самих студентів, це незалежна оцінка якраз діяльності наших викладачів. Тепер ви, думаю, розумієте, що для нас бачити вас в цій залі, бачити наших партнерів і друзів з компанії Pearson – це дійсно дуже гарна справа. Я бажаю всім успіхів, натхнення, ну і гарних днів в нашому університеті. Хай вам щастить!
Thank you very much indeed. And as it has been just said, this fantastic event has been initiated or was initiated 3 years ago by Pearson. And today I'm very, very happy to welcome onto this stage Agnieszka Hybel-Szymańska, who is the regional manager for business development in many European countries, Ukraine being one of the key partners. So we are happy to welcome here on stage Agnieszka. You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be standing here in front of you for the third time, because I was present here during the last 2 forums, and I have to say my Ukrainian is getting better and better, because I managed to understand that there are 1,200 people going to take part in our today's conference today. And from the rector's speech, I understand that the students from this university are the 3rd best students from the whole of Ukraine. So congratulations to our partners and to the university here. Today's event and the 3rd forum that we are holding together is about reforming education. Pearson has been with you, with English teachers in Ukraine for over 20 years. We've been present here with our materials, with our trainings, with our support. But I think we all understand that education nowadays is no longer about teaching materials, about even teacher training, about providing students with good quality. There is more to it. And Pearson has been working on understanding what is needed very, very hard. A part of this work was done in cooperation with Nesta and Oxford Martin School. We conducted a massive research to understand what education and employment is going to look like in 2030. There is a big summary and big report based on this research, which you can find by just Googling future skills, employment in 2030. Apart from this scary fact that 65% of today's teenagers will probably be doing jobs that do not exist yet, there is also some good news. The good news is that, based on our research, all the jobs which are connected with education and healthcare and public are not endangered. They will be growing. And also, as you can imagine, everything which is connected with creative, digital, engineering will also be on the rise. If you want to understand what skills are going to be needed, here they are, 20 spheres in which we found out, based on the research, are as the most important for the future. And when we talk about reforming education, reforming higher education, this has to be taken into consideration. As I said, no longer about teaching materials and providing good quality to students. We need to have a very good understanding of all the spheres which are involved in education and in the way we teach. So we need to cater for both academic competencies and occupational, personal, and also help our students and also ourselves adapt to the changing environment. Speaking of adapting, this is what Charles Darwin said. It is not about the strongest, it is about those who are the most adaptable, who are going to thrive in a changing world. And I think we are in this place where the world of education is changing so much that we need to remember about that. What can we do as teachers, as institutions, to adapt? There are a number of ways, of course, and we can do it in different ways. We can change the way we teach a little bit. We might consider new syllabus. We might understand that our work requires teaching a broader skill set, not only teaching English as English. A wider range of technologies. I was really happy to hear comments from students from this university speaking how working with My English Lab, with our materials, helped them succeed in the ZNO exams. We also had, those of you who were here last year may remember students talking about how they found working with our technology in the classroom. This will mean a slightly different approach from us. How can we, Pearson, how can we here in Ukraine with the internal education help you? What we offer is a mix of content followed by assessment. All of this is accompanied by technology and modern approach to the way we teach and the way students learn. And this is all to lead us to help ourselves and our students progress in their lives through learning. I hope this conference will be an add-on on this route to improving our lives and to enjoying ourselves as well. Thank you very much and enjoy the 2 days.
Thank you very much, Agnieszka. Our event is entitled Reforms in Higher Education of Ukraine, and certainly no reforms could be implemented without cooperation with the Ministry of Education. That's why I'm very happy to ask onto the stage our very, very special guest from the Ministry of Education. Шановні пані та панове, вітаємо. Марина Моруга, державний експерт з Директорату вищої освіти і освіти дорослих.
Шановні колеги, вітаю. Dear friends, dear colleagues, let me welcome everyone to this forum. And we are, I'm personally the first year, but I hope that as the long tradition, the forum becomes the stable tradition and will be meet next year and again. On behalf of the Ministry and especially on behalf of the Directorate of Higher and Adult Education, I would like to say that we are extremely pleased and happy to see the high interest of Ukrainian universities, Ukrainian faculty members and teachers in quality teaching of English and providing quality learning of English. This year, several years, Ministry together with our partners, especially British Council, the USAID and other partners run several studies that in particular referred to learning of English, or particularly the level of English in our country. You know that for several years we already undertake a united qualified examination for entering the mastership program. And that instrument that is growing, and we anticipate that it will become even more wide this year, this academic year and next academic year. It showed that situation with learning English at higher educational establishments is really sad. We have identified that level of English on average does not grow or even falls down, and that is definitely against the sense and goal of higher education. That is a problem that needs to be addressed, and this is one of the reasons why Ministry is looking very attentively into what we can do in order to improve the learning and teaching of English at higher educational establishments. This year, together with British Council, we have developed the concept of state policy in English in higher education. And our representative from the council, Ms. Žana, will tell more about that. But overall, I would like to say that ministry considers it's very important that approaches to learning and teaching English should be changed, that status of English should raise probably, and we all have to tell our students that higher education without English is really not a higher education, and we all have to understand ourselves that and change the culture of use of English in our higher educational establishments. And on our side, we are going to create certain stimulus for students and for universities to do that. And we'll return to that in more details. Overall, speaking about more general context, I think you know that we are in the middle of the reform of higher education, and the political situation is such that it allows to implement different changes. I will not stop in details, but reform is aimed both at some structural things, at financial things, at content things, and the goal of it to really, the key goal is to increase the quality of higher education and provide more opportunities for better life of our graduates. And we believe that English language is definitely a key skill that is a must from each and every graduate and actually teacher in the sphere of higher education. With this, I would like all of you, success with this forum, and hope that we'll make a step towards improvement of and raising the level of our higher education quality.
Thanks a lot. Our next speaker, who has been already kind of introduced by Pani Marina, represents one of the key international bodies that are key players in lots and lots of educational reforms and initiatives. I'm very pleased to invite here on stage Жанна Sevastyanova, the British Council Ukraine. Жанna is the project manager dealing with higher education, so you're most welcome.
My name is Жанна Sevastyanova, I work for the British Council, and today I would like to talk about the policy for English, which was developed by the group of experts, which was led by the Ministry of Education, and the group of experts, people were invited from the universities and also from the British Council. So this is my honor to talk about this. First, we will look at the British Council project, which contributed into this policy development. And after that, I'll talk about the vision in the policy and about the main messages of the policy. And finally, I'll tell you what the British Council plans are, what we are going to do, together with our partners and together with the Ministry of Education and the universities. But before I start talking about the project, the British Council project, let me introduce some interesting statistics, which was contributed by the Ministry of Education, Marina in particular. And this is really telling. And you will understand why I'm talking about this. So, international students. We are talking about teaching subjects through English medium nowadays. Because more and more students are coming to Ukraine, and over the last 7 years, this tendency has been increasing. to study in our universities across all the country. And about 50% of these students study in English. This is something to think about. These students are from 150 countries, even more. And one of the biggest percentage of the students are from India, where English language is one of the native languages. So something to think about. Okay? Let us look at the British Council project. The project called English for Universities, and I know that there are lots of the project participants in the room. Yeah? Can you wave if you're here? Okay, hello. So we started the project in 2014, just after the law on higher education was introduced and the Ministry of Education and the governmental institutions started the reform. And that was to support the reform and to contribute into strengthening the role and status of English as a lingua franca, as the 21st century skill, and to help the tertiary education, the universities, to come to this international arena, to be more integrated, to meet the European aspiration of our country, and to widen the interaction between the tertiary education across the world. The focus was on English for specific purposes, and we worked with one of the group of teachers of English who worked with Ukrainian students, and the other group was those teachers who just started, wanted to start, or were preparing to start, teaching their subjects in English. And they were learning English themselves. They were attending courses, they were talking to different teachers, and they wanted to work with the international students as well. To manage to engage 32 universities in the project. And in our project, we conducted 2 researches, and you will understand why I'm talking about international students. The first research was at the very beginning of the project to understand what the English provision was, and to see what the methodology the subject teachers used to teach their subject, to check comprehension, to make their classes more interactive, and to involve in flipped classes, involve their students into these classes. And the second research was about the achievements, what the project managed to do. That was also about the English teaching. And the recent research, one of the recent research about the teaching English through medium of instruction says that we should pay more attention, not only to the subject teachers who are now learning English, starting teaching in English, but also we should look very attentively at English language teachers. So what I have to say that our project helped these 2 groups of teachers to meet each other, to introduce each other to each other, and to start this large cooperation, this large network across the country, to inform each other what their students need and what English teachers can help, not to translate the articles for the subject teachers. I'll tell you that subject teachers don't want anymore the articles to be translated by English teachers. No, they want to do it themselves, but they know that they would like to learn what approaches, what techniques, what interactive tools the English teachers, working with the recent publications from UK partners, they can bring to their EMI classes, which is also very important. And the swap of this cooperation and swap of information can achieve higher results. So this is one of the very important achievements. That's it about the project. Let me talk about the policy. Why I mentioned these 2 researchers? These 2 researchers, which can be found on the British Council website, contain recommendations from the UK consultants. And these recommendations were used for cooperation with the Ministry of Education. And the recommendation was studied thoroughly and informed the policymakers, informed the procedure of the policy making. And it was clear that there is a need for policy, there is a need for reform to create more opportunities for cultural, educational, and professional development, to be more integrated into global education, into research area, to be presented on the international arena, also to raise the quality of higher education through English language, through methodology provision, English language provision as well, and also to contribute into economic growth, if you like. Some points from the recommendations I would mention before talking about the vision. So, for example, there was one point to advise the universities to create the coordination center between all the teachers who started teaching in English, to help them to gain this methodology for their classes, to be more interactive, to help students with critical thinking. Another recommendation was to think about the hours of English provision at the universities. Do you have enough hours for English classes to help those who enter the universities today, not in a 10-year time? We all hope that in 10-year time, with new Ukrainian school, the universities will have students with B1 level, but we have to teach them today, right? So what hours we have today to help students to improve? What content is delivered in the English classes? This is, everything can be found, what I mentioned in the recommendations in our research. So let us look at the vision. Vision which provides framework for the concrete recommendations for the policy. So by 2025, English competence of teaching staff and also graduates will have increased. English will be not anymore the subject or just language. It will be the well-developed 21st century skill which opens lots of doors and help to interact globally. By 2025, the teaching methods and assessment system will be effective and of quite high quality. And the English language in universities will be delivered based on relevant content, which means will meet the students' needs. So the students will have English, which they can use then later at their workplace or for their academic study, for their future employability and for their future interaction while writing thesis, for example. And also the stakeholders' attitude to status and role of English. That English is not a subject anymore. This is very, very important skill to commit and to contribute the time to provide high quality graduates and high quality staff for our employment market. Students' mobilities and staff mobilities will have increased. This is the vision. This is what the policy aimed to achieve. How we started, what we do. The Ministry of Education initiated to have the group of experts, and the university's experts have been invited, and also British Council was there, and the Institute of Higher Education. We started this, we developed the policy. The policy was introduced for public discussion at the Ministry of Education conference in June, and then in June the policy was signed off by the Ministry of Education board. Let us have a look at this interesting diagram. Actually, this is a diagram created by the Minister of Education, by Marina, personally. And it is, you can see all interesting points which are from the policy, but it is very colorful. I will mention some of the points from the policy and then ask Marina to comment why the diagram has this three colors. Okay? So, talking about the policy, we can say that we know that students coming to the universities still don't have B1 language. Is it right? Do you have the students with B1 language today? Yes. Yes, okay. Yes. No? Would love to have? Yeah? Okay. So, but we have to do something with this. And some of the universities involved in the English for Universities project, British Council project, they have already introduced such approach. They set up the English courses for those students who enter the universities and they would need English. So they have to attend these courses to improve their English over a year. And by the first year, they have to take an exam and demonstrate their level and demonstrate this achievement. This is the aim and ambition on our policy to do this. For example, incentive for those who started teaching in English to support it. This is a quite time-consuming work. They need to prepare this interactive classes, their lectures, look through different resources. So incentive, some of the universities already offer some incentive, for example, 25% to get something. So this is what to think about. ESP content I have already mentioned, and also increased students' mobility. So Marina, could you please comment why we have colors here in our presentation? And this is very interesting.
Dear colleagues, you see basically the legend for the colors on the screen, so you understand that we realize that many activities, in order to change the situation with the English language teaching and learning, it is not only effort of the ministry or the university, but the efforts of both. What I wish to stress is the situation with autonomy. You know that the law on higher education that was approved, passed in 2014, has given the autonomy to universities, but in reality, we see that universities do not realize the autonomy in full extent. However, without you being proactive and being really autonomous and taking decisions to improve your teaching, your provision of subject, we would not change the situation. So basically, we take on the ministry the responsibilities to set the requirements, in particular entrance requirements to bachelor level, which we anticipated B1 level, and to master programs, which we anticipated B2 level. This is one set of responsibilities. The other set of responsibilities that we set the qualification requirements at the end of bachelor programs and at the end of master program. In particular, that may be done through the Unified Qualification State Examination, ЄДКІ, Єдиний державний кваліфікаційний іспити, that might include component on English. And you know the example of that, the health sector, which already included requirements towards English language as part of United States Qualification Examination. What we also take responsibility on ourselves is to put this all in the legislation and regulatory regulations. However, the majority of work is still at the universities, and you see that it's you that have to change the content, it's you that have to change the methods, it's you that have to work with arranging mobility, and so on and so forth. And these are blue color that is sphere of university responsibility. And also there are areas that we have to work together. At the moment, the modes of our collaboration do not exist, so our task is as well to define how we can help each other to, for example, assure better training of foreign students or use of authentic resources, not translated textbooks, and so on and so forth. So we have really big way ahead, and we are open for advices. The policy is the first draft, it is the main principle, but it will develop and continue, it will develop. So your advices, your inputs, what should be included in it, what should be changed and reflected, what should be communicated by the ministry to the country in order to change the situation within its language is very valuable. So I advise you to give your suggestions on one hand, and on the other hand, use these principles as the, let's say, indicator for directions of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me also draw your attention to these pinkish sectors. And this is the sectors of synergy. The synergy of the efforts from the universities, from the international partners who are there to help our host, the university, and the Pearson Education, British Council. We are all here to help and to support and to contribute into this policy implementation. What are our further steps? I mentioned that we are all here, the international partners, the universities. We are all here to contribute into development and into higher education reform. So the British Council plans to invite universities to become volunteers, to design tools, to design recommendations, and plan of actions to implement the policy, with help of international partners as well, with help of the British Council, and to share the experience across Ukraine, let's say in a year, and to inform the policymakers what achievements we would have and what challenges we need to look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. A great pleasure for me to ask onto the stage the next speaker, who has done so much to leading higher education of Ukraine to higher standards. Here onto the stage, I welcome Natalia Starinska, the co-founder and the head of Go Higher organization.
Hello everyone. I'm here at the kind invitation of the Internal Education and Pearson to tell you about our joint program on competence development in higher education. Here it is. So it is my name. Once again, is Natalia Starinska, and in 2018 I came to British Council to Simon Atherton and Jana Sebastianova here with the idea to support implementation of competence-based approach to teaching in higher education. This was clearly a good idea to implement it, but the thing is that many teachers that are there and they have to implement it, they usually have very little support from their universities and their institutions. So the idea was to make the program of support this kind of implementation. The program was developed and supported by not only by British Council, but also by Pearson, by the Internal Education, and kindly supported by Ministry of Education of Ukraine. Program started in 2018, and it was meant to support university teachers. And we have now several steps in this program. This program is lasting for 4 years. Started in 2018 and consists from different campuses. Each campus is dedicated to the development of a separate 21st century set of skills. So we started in last October with Creativity Campus. We followed it by Critical Thinking and Problem-Solving Campus, which was also in Kiev in March this year. And our last event so far was campus on teaching on development of teamwork and communication skills, and it was in Chernivtsi merely a month ago, maybe less. These programs actually were supported by our partners, by trainers that were invited to this program, and also this was a mutual creation, I would say, of this thing. And here are the results. So we have already conducted this, I told you about Creativity Campus and Critical Thinking Problem-Solving Campus and Teamwork and Communication Campus. And now the results are that more than 145 teachers participated and implemented approaches to develop the respective skills to their students. And not only this, they also conducted a series of events to share this information and these skills to other teachers. We have actually here some participants of the campuses. Maybe you can raise a hand. Yay, here they are! And I'm really happy to see everyone here. Actually, the results of it is that not only teachers that are from different locations, different institutions, different knowledge areas, I would say, and areas of expertise are connecting and sharing their experience. It's also the community and shared, how to say, this support, everyone supports everyone. And also we have, based on this experience, created one online course. If someone didn't participate in the Creativity Campus event, you can also join this creativity development course. It's online, it's free. And also, we invite you to participate in our next events. This March, March 2020, there will be a project management and entrepreneurship campus, which I'm really very excited to organize because I'm a project manager and a trainer in project management for long years already. So for me it's really important to share this knowledge and to find this possibility to implement project management in courses in higher education, because this is actually the skill that everyone will need sooner or later in his or her life. And also we have next year the technology in in education campus, which will conclude the campuses events, and the last event will be the joint forum for all the participants of different campuses to share their experience. So stay tuned. I'm really happy to share this experience. I'm hoping to do more, and follow us on Go Higher, and have a very nice event.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Our agenda wouldn't be complete, and our plenary wouldn't be complete without our next speaker. And I'm happy to introduce a researcher at the Institute of Higher Education with the National Academy of Educational Sciences of Ukraine, Olena Orzhin. Olena is an expert and education project manager at the Institute of Leadership, Innovation and Development. Please welcome our next guest speaker, Pani Olena.
Yes. Thank you very much. So, as I was introduced, I'm the researcher, and probably my presentation will be rather boring, the most boring from all other presentations. And I don't like lecturing myself at all. As a researcher, I like to ask questions, and I ask being challenged by the questions. So I will be really grateful to you if you challenge me at the end of the presentation with your questions. And I have prepared quite a number of questions for you today. I'm not sure that we will have a real discussion because there are so many of us. But still, I will try somehow to send the questions to the audience and with the hope to receive some answers. So what I would like to discuss with you today, university social responsibility. I would say for us, for Ukrainian universities, this is quite a new subject. And therefore, the questions that I would like to discuss with you are as follows. What is university social responsibility? Does it exist at all? Maybe it does not exist. Why are we discussing it? Who is responsible and to whom? What forms does this university responsibility take? And at the end, with your support, I hope we will give the definition of university social responsibility. What do you think? Does university responsibility exist at all? Can you nod your head or wave your hand? Does it exist? Yes, some people think it exists. Yes, thank you very much. I also think that it exists and it is very relevant and important. But how does university social responsibility manifest itself? If the university delivers food to local community citizens, is this responsibility? Yes, no? Not sure? If university delivers high quality programs, bachelor and master programs, is this responsibility? More or less, yes. At least better than delivering food. If the university provides well-being programs for the students, is this university social responsibility? People in the back, what do you think? Rather yes than no, right? So we may think of different ways how university social responsibility can and should manifest itself. And if we go to the examples from the global higher education community, we will find plenty of them. Why this topic is interesting for me, why I'm going to discuss it with you, and why do I research it? because it is popular in the world. Today we go to Google if you have a question, and if you Google University Social Responsibility, you will receive 293 million articles in less than 1 minute. And this means that this is really very important and that really relevant that the world is discussing it. So on the slide you see the front page of one of the oldest universities in the world, Bologna University, and on their front page they do not inform about the results of their research, but they inform about their social responsibility for 2017. So this really is important. On the next two slides, this one and the next one, have collected information from and have the references from different universities, university networks, university associations that deal with university social responsibility. It may seem that only the English, the wealthier world, the wealthy states, the English language world cares about university social responsibility. No, it is not so. The universities, the Arab universities, Muslim universities, universities in Asia, in Latin America, they all care and they are really engaged in the discussion of this topic. And again, my question is why? Why is it so important for them that they're all engaged in this discussion? And here I would like to refer to the epoch, to the times under which we live now, and we call it knowledge economy, we call it knowledge democracy, we call it knowledge society. In other words, today knowledge is the major asset, the major driving force of social progress, of economic progress, and where there is knowledge, there is the solution to our political, cultural, social, economic, global and local problems. And where is knowledge located, concentrated? In universities. So universities, as the centers of knowledge, take this responsibility. According to my research, this discourse on the role of universities in the life of society started about 20-25 years ago, and today we may refer to a number of global international instruments where the social, societal role of universities is described. Here I quote have the quotes from two UNESCO forums. One is of 1998, and the World Declaration on Higher Education for 21st Century reads very, very clearly, the mission of the universities is to contribute to sustainable development and improvement of society. The next document adopted at this same conference states very, very clearly, each higher education institution should define its mission according to the present and future needs of society. And here, I really would like all us to remember this word, present and future. Again, as the centers of knowledge, universities should not only think about today, but should, as we work with future generations and think about future generations, probably we should formulate the vision for the future generations as well. In 11 years' time, another UNESCO conference adopted the communique, the new dynamics of higher education and research. And again, I would not read it sentence by sentence, but I will be really happy if you find these documents, look at them, read them with your students, discuss it with your colleagues. I think it will be very, very responsible. So this communique, New Dynamics of Higher Education, contains the whole chapter, which is called Social Responsibility of Higher Education. And one-page text describes how the UNESCO experts regard this university social responsibility. We live in the global world on the other hand. On the other hand, we are part of the European higher education area, part of Bologna process, and there are certain obligations that our country and our universities have taken within the Bologna process. And again, I have quotes or references to Bologna communiques, Prague communique, London communique, Yerevan communique, which again which mention university social responsibility and accordingly explains what Bologna ministers or ministers of higher education within the Bologna process expect of their universities. Bologna process interprets university social responsibility in a very simple way. They call it social dimension, and they explain it like this. Student body should reflect the diversity of Europe's population. And it means that in our universities, the composition of the student population, of the student body, should somehow correspond to what we have in society. Majority and minorities, ethnic minorities, language minorities, adult population and younger population. Today we admit that universities are not only for students aged 18 and up to 2025. Universities take more and more adult learners, the so-called lifelong learning learners, people who are unemployed, people who have lost their job and come to the university for the second or third education. Universities work with so-called third generation, the older population, and provide services to them. And universities should involve or should accept such learners as migrants, asylum seekers. In our country, internally displaced population is very, very important. And not only accept, because yes, it is quite easy, say let's take all war veterans, all ATO veterans as our students. But as Bologna process recommends and guides us, the university should not only open the doors, but also provide the necessary services so that the students should stay in the university and complete the education cycle and receive the diploma. And those who, for instance, have students from Roma population, from disadvantaged families, students who come with traumas from the war, ATO veterans. You know how very difficult it is to deal with the students, and therefore not only to accept but also to organize services to help the students graduate. This discourse on the role of universities, of how higher education is important for our societies, has been unfolding over the last 2 decades, 20-25 years. It is now formulated in the documents that I have mentioned. And with this voice, how universities are very important, there is another skeptical voice. Are these really so important? Why are they important? What exactly do they do? And this also has an impact. What exactly universities do? Why should we fund these universities? And this discourse, skeptical discourse, became very, very prominent in the times of financial and economic crisis, when the governments did not have money to provide proper social services and had to find money to support the universities. So the universities, which before were so-called ivory towers, things in themselves that are separated from the rest of the world, are getting more and more accountable, and they try to serve communities, to justify their existence, to explain to the communities why they exist and what they do for the citizens, for society at large, and for the local community where they live, where they are located. So by now we can find in academic publications, in on university websites, plenty of information explaining what exactly my university do for society, for local community, for the citizens, for different social groups. Now I would like to pass on to the next question and ask who exactly is responsible in the university. Of course, it is very good when the university as an institution declares its social responsibility, saying we are social responsible institution, we care for the future, or we care for the well-being of our society, or we want to stop the climate change. But it may not happen, at least in Ukraine it doesn't happen quite often, but more and more we observe cases when this institutional university social responsibility is recognized at the sub-institutional level, and faculties or departments get engaged and feel and demonstrate this social responsibility. For instance, Kyiv-Mogila Academy, Sumy State University, they currently, in 2014-2015, with this influx of internally displaced population, with the more and more war veterans coming back home with traumas, started to provide psychological rehabilitation services, social rehabilitation services to these groups of people, war veterans, for instance, and their families. And I don't think this was the decision taking at the university level. I think it was rather, in case of Naukma, it was the decision of the Department of Social Work. In case of Sumy State University, it was the decision of the Center of Psychological Services for students, which they run. And I'm sure there are quite a number of such examples. Student self-governments are also, I don't know about teachers, but I know that students, they are really involved in fundraising, collecting money for the military in the east of Ukraine, for collecting food, for collecting books for school libraries in the east of Ukraine. And even if around us there is nobody who has launched this initiative, still we ourselves, we as individuals, can come out with our social responsibility and do something what we would like to do for society, for our neighbor, for our student. Another question is who universities are responsible to. And of course the first answer will be local community. The Ministry of Education, yes, because they give us money. Local and regional self-governments, and we listen more and more that universities would sign an agreement for cooperation agreement with the regional governments, with the local governments. But what about students and their parents? Of course, many universities nowadays, especially if we look at the West, if universities abroad, internationally renowned universities, they would offer a swimming pool for the students, they will offer sex education programs for the students. This is also part of healthy lifestyle consultations for the student. This is also part of university social responsibility, to provide self-environment for the students. Ensure that students are safe and parents can be sure that their children will be safe. University staff. For us, maybe it is, for me, I will speak about myself, for me it would be difficult to imagine 5 or 3 years ago that university social responsibility reveals itself in well-being programs for the teachers. But now I'm absolutely sure that if a teacher isn't happy, he or she cannot make students happy. And therefore, now universities really very actively launch well-being programs for the teachers, assuming that a happy teacher will work better, will teach better, and will teach students how to be happy, healthy, and socially active citizens. Sometimes universities take global responsibility, and again, if you look about, as an former English teacher, I look, of course, first of all at universities of the United Kingdom, and there are plenty interesting examples there. For instance, University of London has adopted a carbon management plan for 2050, and they have set for themselves the target to reduce their carbon emissions. Of course, this will influence the district where the university is located. It will district bigger London, and probably it will have an impact on the whole world. But only one university has decided to do this. Considering the situation we are in, I'm not saying that we all should do this, but I personally think that this is a must for every intellectual to think what exactly at this point of our lives universities should do, and how universities today are responsible to the state, to the army, to the disadvantaged groups, to internally displaced groups. I think we as, again, intellectuals have something to contribute. For instance, if you look at Palestine universities, their social sciences faculties are very actively involved in the research of radicalism, or their universities deliver the so-called tolerance workshops. And we have the same problem today. I don't know of such initiatives when the university is really engaged in conducting the research how to stop hate speech, or how to contribute to research the national identities, because we have multiple national identities in Ukraine. And for me, a very acute question is values. What are the values that unite us as Ukrainians? And so far, I have not seen any research, though we have quite a number of social sciences and social scientists and faculties and departments throughout our country. So, in my understanding, it is time for us to really start thinking harder how we can express our social responsibility. The next two slides will be the examples, and this is just 1%, maybe 5% of what is possible. So, as I have already said, universities can manifest as their strategy or their mission, their social responsibility. Quite a number of universities have programs or projects where they clearly state, as our social responsibility, we will do this and this. There are universities who believe that their major mission is to educate students, and therefore they have socially responsible programs. Have you heard about service learning courses? Yes? No? They are quite popular when a service to the community becomes part of the curriculum. Not if you want, you may go volunteer, no, but service to the community is embedded into the curriculum. And this is getting more and more popular. And there are, of course, other examples which I mentioned that you know, when universities organize events for community where they are located, festivals, workshops, conferences. Sometimes it is local initiative, but sometimes it is a global initiative. For example, George Washington University for many years ran the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center, where to the whole world they provide trainings in financial literacy. Here I leave room for you to write your own examples of what forms university social responsibility has or may take. And the definition of university social responsibility that I promised to give at the beginning. So what I was trying to say that in this topic there are more questions, but there are many answers. And the further I research this topic, the more I understand that this phenomenon is so broad and so deep that it is impossible to give the definition that would fit all what we find in the world, that can describe everything what we can find in the world with university social responsibility. But some moments, some aspects of university social responsibility I would like to emphasize, and this is cooperation with society. It's a must. If you declare your responsibility, you, in this form or another, try to cooperate with society. The next important thing is impact. It is important that what university does has impact on society. Again, your students as your key beneficiaries of university services, your stakeholders, employers, local community, government, but there should be impact at certain groups of stakeholders. And the definition which I think is relevant, because we as the university basically and mostly deal with knowledge. It is our responsibility, our primary responsibility is for the knowledge, for generation of knowledge through research, dissemination of knowledge through teaching, and very, very important for us, Ukrainians, application of knowledge. We have plenty of researchers, and you know this, like me, that there is so much research which is on the shelves, in the writing tables, in the library, in the internet, but not applied, not used for the benefit of our society. And for me, it is very important that this knowledge will be taken out of the writing tables and would somehow used, applied for the public good. Thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to take your questions.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Are there any questions? Maybe the question and answer time, well, as you thought. Well, so any questions now for our guest? If not, then I hope that you will have the chance to communicate at our consultation stands. And now a bit of information for me. This event has been originally was thought as the ground for communication, and each of you is wearing a badge, and it's a fantastic idea to find new links, new cooperation, new friends during our break time. You will also have the chance now to have a chat with our experts and consultants at numerous consultation stands. We've got the colleagues who will update you on everything about the international certification at the Pearson Test of English stand. You have heard about My Lab program and platform. There is a stand on My Lab, and well, my colleagues will be happy to consult you on that. There are the stands of our partners, such as the London School of English, British Council, Grade, Grammarly, and lots more. Then, before I have forgotten, you can see this hashtag, and this is for a reason. I have seen many of you taking the photos. Please do more. Well, take the selfies, the photos, choose the best one, and with the hashtag ELT Forum UA, you have a chance to win, it was just a random order, to win the books, 3 books of business English. The book by Pearson called Business Partner. Is that a familiar title for any of you here? I can see lots and lots of wild hands. Yeah, a fantastic resource for business English. Not only the book is good, but there are 3 of them at the prizes, but each book is signed by the author Evan Fremdo, who was the guest of our last year forum. So don't miss the chance. Please post a photo of the hashtag, and you have all the chances. However, Even if you are not the fan of the selfies, you still have a very good chance to have a nice, small but nice prize without like doing practically anything. Have you got these tokens with you? Okay, well, don't close them. When you go out, you will see the similar, thing, a bit bigger. And this is the 100% chance to get a small but nice prize, just spinning the wheel. Finally, we are moving fast, and even if we have even more time than stated on our agenda, and which is good, you will have the chance to visit the canteens and cafes of the university, and you have seen many volunteer students kindly organized by the university. That was great help. The volunteers will be happy to show you the way to the cafes, so if you see that this food court is full and it's rather crowded, please ask the students. They will show you the way where you can have some coffee and snacks. And let's agree to stick to the agenda, and we are to meet here to listen to our key guest speaker after the break. Thank you very much. See you there. And we are starting. Also, can possibly my colleagues close the doors, right? Okay, good. So welcome back. Happy to see you back here. Take a seat, please, right? Okay. Fine, starting on time. Almost. So I hope you have had a good time, have had the chance to grab a cup of coffee and have a look at our stands and take part in the lottery. If not, well, no worry. Right after this session here, there will be 2 more rounds of the lottery. So still some more winners are sitting right here in this room. So now, it's a great pleasure for me to announce and to invite onto the stage our next speaker, our guest, Rob Dean, who is a teacher trainer and an academic consultant in Pearson.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay, dobry dzień. Witaję Was na mojej sesji. Mnie zwaty Rob. And tomorrow, I promise, I won't read it. I've memorized it. It's great to be here with you today, and thank you very much for having me along as your guest at this wonderful event. The theme obviously is reform, and it seems so appropriate. It's 6 years since I was last in Ukraine, last in Kiev, and I've only been here since yesterday evening, but I've seen so many changes already. There's something going on here, isn't there? There's a new airport. Wow. I couldn't believe it. I thought, has the plane landed in the wrong city? But no, this is evolution. This is reform. This is development. Another unfortunate side effect, of course, of development is that I believe the price of a half litre of oberon has more than doubled in the time I've been coming here. But nevertheless, wonderful to be with you. My name's Rob. I'm a trainer, a teacher. I've worked in English language teaching now for 25 years, and I'm here to share some ideas. That's basically what I'm going to do. Our theme is reform, and essentially what I want to do is start by going back in time. Going back in time a very long time, to when I was a kid at school. Do you remember your school days? I vaguely remember mine, as I say, a long time ago. The school classroom where I was probably resembled something a little bit like this. Now, I'm not in that picture, so please do not look for me, okay? But I think it's interesting, isn't it? You can tell an awful lot about an educational environment by the way in which the students are arranged. All these people are sitting in rows, they're all facing the front, they all have their heads down. I get the feeling they're probably doing some sort of dictation activity. It's to be hoped they're not speaking, because speaking back then was basically not allowed. That's not what we did in the language classroom then. And I know this from experience. I remember doing French at school. I remember the course book we used. It was called Le Français d'aujourd'hui, which means the French of today. Well, it was a strange book in a way, because one thing I remember about it was having to learn lots of sentences from this book and then being tested on them later. One of the sentences I remember was this: Mon tailleur est très riche. My tailor is very rich. I'm sure you'll agree it's a useful thing to know. Où est la plume de ma tante? Where is my aunt's fountain pen? Again, pretty handy to know. Now, those people in my school who were good at French, and I was, were given a special surprise, a special treat, a second language to study. And do you know what that language was? It was German. Yes, it was German indeed. And from the German course book, Sprich mal Deutsch, which means just speak German, here are some more interesting things we had to learn and to be tested on. Ist das Gras rot? Nein, es ist grün. Is the grass red? No, it's green. Maybe in Germany they used to have different kinds of grass, I don't know. But nevertheless, my favourite one though, my favourite one of the lot, has to be this. Dies ist keine Banana, es ist ein Leuchtturm. This is not a banana, it's a lighthouse. It's true, we had to learn these, and obviously it had some effect, because I can still remember them all these years later. However, despite the fact that we've got here sentences containing wonderful examples of grammar, perfect use of vocabulary, I would suggest that ultimately these are utterly meaningless, simply because I have never had the course to use any of these anywhere outside my language classrooms from school days in real life. So we're going to be talking about a meaningful situation today. A meaningful situation whereby we avoid what we commonly had in my classrooms as a result of what we've just seen. This was a common reaction. We do not want this. So how are we going to deal with it? We're going to move on. We're going to leave the past behind. And this is where our reform theme kicks in a big way. Nowadays, we're talking about a different way with language. We're having an emphasis on professional skills, on English proficiency. What do I mean by proficiency? I mean using the language for a purpose, not just knowing about it, because that's all we did at school. We just knew the grammar. We didn't actually use it. We're talking about competences. Competences, what you can do with it, what you can achieve. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. And we're also talking about student-centeredness too. It's a topic that's been going on now for many, many, many years. And I think it's a valid thing to talk about. We're talking about materials, and there are two very important words on the bottom there, emphasised in blue. We're talking about employment. We're talking about real-life needs. What's rather scary, actually, is that some places around the world in the English language teaching environment have not really been doing very well when it comes to preparing students for employment and for real life. My French and German classes certainly didn't. We want to make sure that we have a meaningful situation whereby we are dealing with this. So that's the basis of what we're going to be talking about today. This is what I was talking about a moment ago. 11% of employers think that educational institutions are effectively preparing students for work. This is from some research done by Gallup, which I'm sure you've heard of, a market research company. Very, very interesting. At the same time, and this is a broad brush view, this is global, at the same time 96% of chief academic officers believe they're equipping their students for future employment. So we've got a huge mismatch going on here. Somehow we need to bridge this gap, bring it together. So in this session, it's going to be a very practical session. It's going to be a hands-on session. I'm going to be looking at a meaningful classroom in the 21st century for our university-age students. We'll be looking at approaches. There will be some practical activities for you to get involved with. There'll be some materials I'd like to share with you. And we're going to begin by talking about this. Another of those buzzwords in English language teaching nowadays. We're all talking about 21st century skills. In fact, we have been doing now for almost 20 years. Let's investigate this in a little bit more detail. And I have some questions for you, and I'd like you to respond to the questions. Think about your students, the students you teach in your universities, your educational environments. Do you encourage these students to do communicative activities in group work and pair work? Yes? I like that. Brilliant. Okay. Do you get your students to help each other with tasks? You do, okay. Do you get your students to do role plays? For example, okay, it could be shopkeeper and customer, or it could be other contexts, maybe business ones. Yeah, okay. Do you get your students to do projects? For example, posters, stories, all this kind of thing? Yeah. Do you get your students to solve puzzles and play games? You do, I'm glad to hear that. And last but not least, do you get your students to develop their own awareness of their strengths and weaknesses? Ah, interesting that, isn't it? There's a slightly muted response to that one. And maybe that's not too surprising. I think as we talk about reform, this idea of student-centeredness and students being aware of their own strengths and weaknesses is something that's probably in its infancy to some degree. Students traditionally have relied on the teacher as the fount of all knowledge here, the teacher to tell the students how they're getting on. But maybe that's not the only way. In fact, when students develop into their careers, they're not always going to have somebody to tell them how they're getting on. This sense of awareness is going to be an important thing for them to have in any case. Nevertheless, what we're talking about here then, we're talking about communication, we're talking about collaboration, obviously alive and well in your classrooms, which is brilliant. We're talking about creativity. Let me be clear about this. Creativity is often mistaken only to mean, for example, building an amazing building or painting a work of art. It doesn't have to be that. For me, creativity is doing something you have never done before. So if that means writing a sentence about yourself in a foreign language and you've never done that, well, to me, that's creative. And then finally, we're talking here about critical thinking. Put together, we have the 4 C's, and these are what we often talk about when we talk about 21st century learning. But let me be mischievous for a minute. I don't think these are 21st century skills at all. I think these have been in use for a very long time. I would suggest that Plato and Socrates used these skills all those years ago. I would suggest that Leonardo da Vinci used these skills when he invented the helicopter back in the 14th century. The thing is, they are important. They've not always been in our classrooms, and that's the key thing. Why should they be in our classrooms? Well, I have 4 reasons for this. One is it reflects real-world behaviour. Just a quick question for you. How many people here had to ask for directions to find this venue today? Anybody have to ask for directions? A few of you did. Okay, as you ask for directions, what do? You have to think critically. Who shall I ask? You then have to be a bit creative in deciding how to interpret the answers. You communicate, you collaborate with the person you ask for the directions. You might communicate and collaborate with the person you're travelling with to interpret the information you've received. More critical thinking. So there's a lot going on there. And that's just one little example. We mentioned earlier that 65% of our 12-year-old students today will be doing jobs that do not yet exist. So we don't know what our students' future holds for them precisely, but we can be clear on one thing, that is that our students' futures will be different from our past, and these 21st century skills are a key part of that. Question, how many of you here teach classes that are not mixed ability? Very good answer. Not a single hand went up. And that is simply because there is no such thing as a class that is not mixed ability, is there? Every class in the world is a mixed ability class. And anything we can do to help cater for the differences that exist can only be a good thing. And as we'll see, the use of 21st century skills can seriously help. And the last point I'd make is that it can make learning more varied, it can make learning more effective, it can make it more engaging. And let's not forget that little 3-letter word there, fun. Yeah, we're in universities, but is fun and university, are they 2 separate things? I don't think so, not necessarily. So let's bear this in mind as we move forward. And what I'd like to do next is get into some more practical areas, looking at a situation where once we have reformed, we might be able to see some of the benefits from that. Now, when it comes to the 4 C's, I often find this a difficult one to deal with. You can't really separate them out, can you? Because they're all connected. You can't have critical thinking without communication. You can't have collaboration without communication. But if you to choose just one of those as the most important, what would it be? Okay, we've got different answers, and you're all right. You are all correct. I'm going to choose communication for the simple reason that as language teachers, that is one of our key focuses. The others are all very, very, very important. But the question is, communication. How do we communicate? Now, at one time, it was very common in language classrooms around the world to present English in the style of who? What model was often used? The Queen's English, indeed. I have a question for you, though. How many people speak the Queen's English? 1. And she's a very nice lady who lives in Buckingham Palace. Question 2, how many of your students are going to meet the Queen? None of them, I would suspect. None of them. The people your students are going to meet are people who speak in many and varied ways. But the problem is, how do we prepare our students for this? How do we prepare them to be ready to go out there and meet people speaking with all these different accents? This can be a problem. Well, maybe not now, because what I'd like to do is share with you, in a moment, a way in which you might be able to deal with this. One thing I missed out, you can tell I've not done this presentation before, can't you? One thing I missed out were reasons for communication. So just hold the thoughts from earlier, just for one moment. We do communicate for a number of different reasons, don't we? Why do we communicate? We communicate for entertainment, yes, you unscramble the letters, well done. We communicate to give and find out information. We communicate to share opinions. We communicate to solve problems, indeed, there might be little ones, deciding what to have for lunch, or trying to solve the problem of Brexit. Oh, I mentioned it, I shouldn't have done. Yeah, so, problem solving. We communicate. More difficult, that one. Survival. Survival. That can be literally for staying alive. I've fallen out of the ship. Help, save me. Or we could be talking about survival of a company, survival of a business. And very important too, stephrelanios. I like that word. Doesn't exist. Relationships or friendships. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Friendships. Making friendships is a key thing. Relationships too within a business, relationships between businesses and customers. All these things are very key reasons for communication. And if this is why we communicate in everyday life, this surely is why we should be communicating in the classroom, to prepare our students for this. Now, my apologies, I got the things in the wrong order. Remember, we were talking about the idea of the Queen's English. All right, let's go to London. Let's find out how people really speak within all of these categories that we've just been looking at. Okay, you're going to hear a video, you're going to see a video actually. How do your students react when you say you're going to watch a video? Yeah! We're not doing any work today. That's brilliant. We're going to watch TV. So there is a motivational factor to video, there's no doubt about it. But with this video, what we've got from the course Speak Out, we've got a short clip of people in the streets of London talking about what they enjoy doing in terms of travel, which countries they've been to. You'll hear all sorts of different accents, and my question for you is, how many accents do you hear?
I've spent a lot of time living in different countries, so there isn't one place I think of as home. I've lived in Scotland and Poland and China. I love going to new places and learning about new cultures, Today, I'm asking people about travel.
I love travel. It's one of my passions.
Well, I enjoy it a lot. I have travelled to India several times. I lived there and I live here, and I've been to Istanbul once, and I enjoyed that very much.
I've done quite a bit of travelling as well, holidays and stuff. I think it's good experience.
You get to meet different people coming from different backgrounds, and that's really important to get an understanding.
It's always just nice to get out and experience a different culture and a different lifestyle.
I get very excited about the thought of going to most countries, any country.
I love to travel to different countries.
I'm going to pause it there. They do continue a little longer. We'd need to watch it again, I think, and listen again to determine just how many different English accents we heard. But far beyond simply giving students Queen's English, what we're doing with that piece of material is we're exposing learners to Indian English, Northern English, Southern English. We're talking about, what else was there? There was American English, there was Australian English in there, a huge mixture. And this always brings me back to the first time my partner, my girlfriend, she went to London for the very first time. She told me that when she came back again, people were saying, "How was it? Did you enjoy yourself?" And she said, "No." She said, "It was awful." She said, "Because I didn't understand a single word of what people were saying." So this is the first thing. When we're talking about reform, let's deal with reality. Let's deal with the way that people really speak, because that way we're going to help our students for the days when they leave the classrooms and they're going to encounter all these different accents. So yeah, we've got a piece of material from a course book, but the beauty of YouTube, for example, getting students to watch and listen to things they're interested in with differing accents can only be a good thing. And I'm talking here not just about the traditional native speaker type accents. I'm talking about Swiss English, Swedish English, Japanese English, French English, Italian English, Polish English, all the different Englishes you can possibly imagine. We're talking about a global language here. We're not just talking about the so-called native speaker model that used to be so popular. So one aspect of the way people really speak, we're talking here of course about accents and pronunciation primarily, but there's more to it than that. We're talking also about different communication styles. Now, from the sign on the kiosk, you probably recognise the country. Yeah, I'm sure you do. I was there. Oh, I've been there a few times actually, but a while ago I decided I was feeling confident enough to be able to go to the window of one of these places to buy a trolleybus ticket. So using my best Russian, I asked, "Есть билеты?" Don't laugh, it was terrible, wasn't it? And I waited for the answer. The answer I got was, "Нет, нет." Oh, okay. So I stood and I waited for her to tell me something else, but she didn't. The next customer in the queue just shoved me out of the way, and then I was left thinking, well, what do I do now? Very direct, isn't it? Very direct. Some languages are like that. Polish, I live in Poland. Polish is quite direct. Question, answer, solution, problem solved. No messing about. And at first I used to think it was rude, but I'm not so sure now. I think it's very efficient. Because if you compare it with a similar situation, for example, in the United Kingdom, now we don't have kiosks, and believe it or not, we don't have trolleybuses either. But if we did, let's imagine the scenario. Okay, we go up to the window. "Do you have any tickets?" "Oh, I'm so sorry. We sold the last ones about 10 minutes ago, but if you come back tomorrow, we should have some. Otherwise, across the road, there's a little shop next to Tesco. They're open till 11. They have tickets, and I think you should be able to pay with your credit card there. If not, try the petrol station next to the church, over the road, near the bakery. The bakery does very good buns, by the way." What's all that about? Why have we suddenly turned it into listening comprehension? I just asked a question, that was all. You can see the problem, can't you? We've got indirect and direct approaches that fit different cultural norms. And as English becomes more global, culture is an inevitable part of what we're dealing with. If we look at some more examples, if I was to say to you, "Have you got your car with you?" What do I really mean? "Can you give me a lift home, please?" Yeah. If I say to you, "Hey, those biscuits look nice," what do I mean? give me a biscuit. Yeah? If I say to you, have you got a minute? What do I mean? It means you're in trouble. I'm going to give you some extra classes. Or you're fired. Have you noticed when somebody asks you this, you always think the worst, don't you? You always think the worst. And I've been a manager in my time. I've had to attract the attention of an individual, and I've never been able to do this without making them really frightened. But what we're talking about is hidden meaning. We're talking about indirectness. And there's a reason for this. There's a reason. It's about being nice. It's about avoiding conflict. If I say to you, those biscuits look nice, you could say to me, oh, they're for my daughter's birthday. And I could say, really? How's your daughter? I haven't seen her for a while. And what have we done? We've avoided, can I have a biscuit? No. That's what we've done. So it's a very common thing in language. And the next thing we're going to look at in a business context is using directness and indirectness to solve problems. And as we see here, in direct cultures, people often focus on facts. They give clear opinions. They want to communicate with honesty. In indirect cultures, the focus is more on feelings. Remember? Have you got any tickets? No. Have you got any tickets? Oh, I'm really sorry. You see the difference already. What we're going to see is a situation now in an office. A situation in an office. There is a problem. As you watch the short video clip, identify what the problem is. And my question for you is, which way would you go to solve the problem if you were the boss? Would you take a direct approach or an indirect approach?
Good morning. Good morning, how are you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. You alright?
Life is very busy at the moment. There's just so much to do and coordinate. Here, Germany, Mexico, Japan. I spend half my time on the phone these days, dealing with the project. It's like my workload just doubled overnight. Plus, as project lead, I have to host the regional managers when they come to London. We had Paola in from Mexico recently, and now Kenji's over from Japan. It must be tough on Paola and Kenji. They're completely new to international projects.
Knock knock. You're not answering your phone today.
Jack, sorry. Was that you a few minutes ago?
You look a bit tired, mate. What's up? Oh, having fun with the new markets project?
No. I mean, yes. Overall, so far so good. I've just got loads of work, and I'm getting more and more concerned about what's going on in Japan.
What do you mean concerned? Isn't Kenji here at the moment?
They're running about 3 weeks behind schedule, and I just don't see how we're going to make up the time.
3 weeks is not a concern. It's a disaster. What's going on?
Well, hold on. It's complex. Kenji doesn't have a great deal of experience. Stephanie's busy with Mexico, so no time for Japan, and yeah, we're behind.
3 weeks behind.
I'm going to talk to Kenji about it later.
I suggest you go over there and have some strong words, sooner rather than later. Tell him that he needs to perform or he's out. A bit of straight talking wouldn't do any harm.
I know, but it's Japan. You can't do straight talking or you'll offend everyone.
Matt, you can't stereotype like that. Kenji's a professional. You need to tell him to his face what you expect and when you expect it.
Look, you may be right, but the guy's trying. Shouting at him isn't my style. I think I prefer to take a more gentle approach.
Okay, so we have a pause. Right then, so we've seen the situation. The Japan project is slipping behind very, very badly. And the line manager of the Japanese employee has two options. He must speak to the employee, but he can choose a direct approach or an indirect approach. What do you think? In fact, let me change the question slightly, because we're going to see a continuation of the scene in the form of two different video clips, one showing a direct approach in action and the other showing an indirect approach. Which would you like to see first? Direct. I'm glad you said that because that happens to come next anyway on my computer. So, shall we have a look at the direct approach and see what happens? Okay, let's have a look.
Kenji, I need to have a word.
Yes?
I'll cut directly to the point as we need to find a solution. I've been going over our schedules this morning, and the Japan side of this project is running more than 3 weeks late. It's a major delay. I'm not happy about it.
Okay. I understand it is not ideal, but I'm working very hard to put things right. It's not necessary to worry.
I do worry, Kenji, and no, it's not simply not ideal. It's a serious problem. As I'm sure you've seen since you've been over here, we have a lot of resources dedicated to helping Japan. If you delay, there's a planning impact here.
Okay, I understand your concern, but we don't have all the required resources in Japan.
I don't agree at all. We discussed resources in detail at the start of the project. And it's very late in the day to be having this kind of discussion. I've had a word with Stephanie, and I'm going to send her over to Tokyo for a couple of weeks. I think that you could benefit from her experience. If we don't resolve this now, we're risking the whole project.
Okay.
Right. Stephanie has been briefed, and she will talk to you about this tomorrow and make arrangements.
Okay. Thank you. See you later.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Alright, so let's just hold that in our thoughts for a moment as we compare it with an indirect approach. Shall we see what happens and how the outcome might be different?
Morning, Kenji. How are you doing? How's the family?
Very well, thank you.
Listen, Kenji, have you got a few minutes for a quick chat?
Certainly.
I know that you're very busy, and I hear that things are going very well in some areas. But I think it's good to update on the project. It's a very demanding situation for you, and there's a slight delay on your part of the project, right? Just over 3 weeks?
Yes. We're struggling a bit with resources. There are some other projects that management in Japan wants to take priority. It's difficult to balance.
I understand. Look, how do we go forward to get back on track? Any ideas?
I think we can manage.
I'd like to help. Is there any further support from our side which can help?
Maybe Stephanie? Is she available? Her expertise will be very helpful. But I understand that she's in Mexico.
Not a problem. I can ask her to travel to Japan for when you get back. Stay for a week or so until things are back on track. Would next Friday be good for her to visit?
Yes, that would be good.
Excellent. So we're in agreement. In fact, why don't you call Stephanie and arrange for her to go over, and we can talk again in a couple of weeks. I'm sure that we can get things back on track.
Okay, I'll call her. Thanks for the support, Matt. I appreciate it.
Okay, so slightly different ending. Slightly different ending, isn't it? That actually comes from a course called Business Partner. I know some of you have heard of Business Partner, and each unit contains a communication skills lesson like this one, where you have a problem scenario and then 2 different possible ways of solving it, all presented in the form of video material. So rather than me continuing at this stage talking about these videos, there is a conclusion provided in the form of comments from a genuine business expert. This is not an actor, but this person sums up basically what we've just
It's
seen.
important to be aware that people communicate differently depending on their culture as well as their personality. So firstly, be aware that a direct style can be useful and effective. It makes things clear, it's honest and fast, and some people actually like it. So we see Matt in the first video, partly on the advice of Jack, say very clearly that he's not happy and what needs to happen. And he gets Kenji to understand the situation quickly. That's useful for the team. But we all know a direct style can be dangerous. It can close down conversation. It can even cause conflict. Indirect communication can also work. It's more polite for some, but it can take longer to be effective. So in option B, Matt asks Kenji to take the next steps to call Stephanie. However, Matt has to step in again later and make the call himself, as Kenji was slow to do it. So in the end, the same result is achieved as option A with the indirect style, but Matt possibly has a happier team without any conflict.
So there we go. I think we can see very clearly we've moved a very long way from talking about lighthouses, bananas, my aunt's fountain pen, and my tailor being very rich. We're using language here for real outcomes, for real purposes. And the video aspect of it, students, as we established earlier on, they do enjoy it. They do enjoy it. And I think one reason for this is that it's connected to what they do for pleasure in their own time at home. They watch YouTube, they watch television, they watch videos and DVDs, and that pleasure principle transfers into the classroom. But it's not just a novelty, it's not just about pleasing our students. There's also the realism factor. Realism in terms of the fact that we've just been to an office, we've just met lots of people from different cultural backgrounds. In fact, that entire series has a very, very multicultural feel to it, with associated accents. Very important, as we said earlier on, exposing students to this. The visual channel is a powerful one because clearly the visual channel reinforces what we hear. It's very difficult, isn't it, listening to a voice when we can't see who's speaking. We do it on the phone, obviously, but it's becoming decreasingly frequent because what we do nowadays, even when we communicate online, we can often see the other person. In fact, sooner or later, I wouldn't mind betting that even in language exams, we'll be using video-based material for the listening sections. I've no evidence of that, but I imagine it's going to be a logical move to make. As a result of this visual element, it's a powerful tool to use with mixed ability classes, of which all our classes are. So, where have we been? We've been looking at the idea of culture, we've been looking at the idea of real language for real outcomes. Where do we go next? We make sure our students have practice opportunities. All too important, and the practice opportunities that are provided here at the end of the sequence give the students opportunities to role-play problem-solving situations, practicing direct and indirect approaches. So, we've been talking then about communication. Communication in a business setting. But of course, communication is not just about business. Communication is about everyday life. Communication is about the sort of thing that we might do socially. Let's not forget, our students are going to find themselves in businesses. And as we mentioned earlier on, one of the reasons for communication in business is to develop relationships, to make friendships, oiling the wheels, chit-chat, gossip, all this kind of stuff. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is a communication scenario that might just happen anywhere. It could be in a restaurant, it could be at home, it could be in a pub, it could be in the dining room at the office where we work. Let's bear in mind, of course, that when we do communicate, as we've just seen, it's not a one-way street. Communication is very much a two-way street, and it often frustrates me, to be honest, when I see exams that practice listening and then totally separately we seem to have speaking. To me, surely, if somebody's speaking, it implies that somebody's listening. If somebody's listening, it implies, surely, that somebody must be speaking. So to me, the pair go together very, very strongly. So let's put this into practice in an activity based upon something the BBC did a few years ago. They did a survey of the British population and they asked them to nominate 50 things we should all do before we die. Actually, I want to rephrase that. 50 things to do while we're alive. Doesn't that sound more positive? I think it does. All right. The results were collated by the BBC and turned into a BBC TV programme. 5 of the things that were suggested are here. Okay, these are just 5 of the things, not all 50. We're going to watch another video clip. I hope you're enjoying the videos. Okay, this is, I think, the last one for today. All right, and the question I have for you is, which of these was number 1? And which do you think should be number 1? Okay, so that's the task. Let's have a look at a selection of these taken from 50 Things to Do Before You Die from the BBC.
At number 38, it's husky sledding. I've come to Saarisalkka in Finland for a test drive. Absolutely beautiful here. The snow is just like, it's got little bits of crystal all over it, and you can really take it in because the dogs are doing all the hard work.
Just the sound of the snow and the dogs panting with all the silence around, I think that'd be fantastic.
Totally silent apart from the sound of the sleds and the dogs' paws. Incredible.
Oh really? As I'll ever be.
This is much more exhilarating than just sitting in the land. Actually having the dogs work for you and feeling like you're in or out of control is definitely where it's at.
Meet Rebecca Over, an estate buyer from Surrey who, like hundreds of you crazy people, wanted nothing more than to be strapped to the outside of a plane and take part in your very own wing-walking display. The craze started when World War I pilots would strap their 4 girlfriends to the outside of their planes to entertain the crowds at air shows. We sent Rebecca off to Rentham in Gloucestershire.
I'm feeling excited, a little bit nervous, can't wait, raring to go.
So, buckled and braced, our daredevil is ready to go.
The wind is really, really strong and it's really hard to do the waving. Oh, it's been wonderful, an amazing day.
Still in America now, and time to go west on the legendary Route 66. 2,400 miles, 8 states, 3 time zones, one incredible journey.
Once upon a time, it was kind of the thing to do.
The famous route from Chicago to Los Angeles was used by thousands of Americans attempting to flee the hard times of the Great Depression. And for many, it's remembered as the road to opportunity.
I'd love to experience what they did, travelling over 2,500 miles, and experience that wonderful feeling of getting somewhere which is better.
Next up, something you've let get as high as 17 on this list. You're crazy. It's bungee jumping.
Feeling you get when you jump off, fall off, dive off, or whatever, it's just awesome.
It's to fly like that and listen and those and stretch and bounce back up. Great fun.
Throughout history, they've intrigued mankind with tales of their mystical powers and super intelligence. Their legendary curiosity and playfulness have enchanted us for generations. Thousands and thousands of you have bombarded us with emails and calls to say the number one thing to do before you die is to go swimming with dolphins.
They're absolutely amazing animals. They're so gentle.
Well, there we are. Was that a surprise? No? Yes? Well, I have to say, I want to look at this from the dolphins' point of view. I mean, if they did a survey with the dolphins, would their number one thing to do be to go swimming with humans? I wonder. It does worry me. Anyway, apart from that, we saw the order of those as they appeared in the film. I think it's time for you to do a little speaking. Okay. What I'd like you to do with a partner, okay, so if you can find a partner, somebody next to you, somebody in front of you, somebody behind you, say hello to them, and be nice to them if you've never met them before. All right? I would like you, please, to put the activities in order, in the order that together you would most like to do them. Okay? So number 1 should be the one you'd most like to do, and number 5 the one you'd least like to do. Alternatively, number 1 could be the one you really don't want to do, and number 5 could be the one you really don't want to do. Okay? So put them into some sort of order. I'm going to give you just 2 minutes with the person next to you, in front of you, or behind you. So in pairs, when you're ready, off you go. Okay, I'm going to interrupt you there. Have you at least chosen your number 1? You have. All right then. What we'll do now, I'd like each pair to join with another pair. So now I have groups of 4. Okay, so into groups of 4. Okay, if it's 5, that's okay. If it's 3, that's okay. All right. So more than 2s anyway. And I'd like to do this again. This time, I want you to try and agree, all of you, on the order. I won't be giving you very long, but at least see if you can decide on number 1 and number 5, but in a bigger group. So in a group of 3 or 4 or 5. Are you ready? 2 minutes are yours, starting from now. Off you go. Okay, thank you. I will interrupt you once more. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, before we move on, I want to get a bit of feedback from you in a moment. The video clip you saw came from the BBC and it features in the course Speak Out, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. The activity we've just done could continue. We started in pairs, we then did the same activity again in 4s, we could do the same thing again in groups of 6, and we could make it bigger and bigger, repeating the activity each time. Something called a pyramid discussion, something essentially that gives the students a chance to repeat the same thing over and over again without realising it. They're so focused on the results that they don't actually realise they're practising language in a very, very student-centred and meaningful way. What sort of language are they practising there? What sort of language did you use? I suspect you used language of agreement and disagreement. I suspect you used language of putting forward opinions. I suspect you used the vocabulary related to these different activities. So a great way of practicing language, but in an interactive, creative, collaborative, and way in which it involves critical thinking. All right, quick bit of feedback. So number one, how many of you chose swimming with dolphins? Wow, that's a lot of you. How many of you chose wing walking as number one? Nobody. Bungee jumping, number one. My goodness, okay. How many of you chose Route 66 as number one? That's quite a few of you. What was the other one? How many of you chose husky sledding in Finland as number one? All right. And number 5, the least favourite. How many of you chose bungee jumping? How many of you chose wing walking? Seems to be the least popular one, doesn't it? So there we go. A piece of material like that, a great way of allowing students to employ the 4 C's whilst practicing language and really sharing information. The sort of information they might share in a social setting in real everyday life. In fact, I was thinking about these activities, and when we talk about companies nowadays, a lot of companies often provide team building activities for their employees, don't they? You familiar with these? They go away for a weekend and they might do mountaineering, or they might build tents, or they might do survival skills to develop team building and teamwork. And I thought this linked rather nicely to what comes next. We're going to go back into a work type environment, and I'm going to give you a little task. A little task that might seem a bit strange for a work type environment. It's a task based around the theme of party time, because it is nearly Christmas, isn't it? In your universities, do you have a Christmas party or celebration at the end of the year? Yeah? Companies do, I know that for sure. So your task, and I'm going to give you a very short amount of time to do this, I'd like you to put together a few ideas for a Christmas party, an event. Now, money is no object for this, so you can go crazy. If you want to take all your colleagues bungee jumping, or swimming with dolphins, or to Las Vegas to see Whitney, oh, you can't see Whitney Houston, she's not with us anymore. Who could it be? Elton John or something, I don't know. You can spend all the money you want. Let's be really, really creative about this. It is, I think, fitting in very nicely with what we talked earlier on. It's definitely a realistic communicative activity. We're sharing information, we're sharing opinions. It's a problem-solving activity. And I know, through having worked in a number of different companies, that a task like this is sometimes more important than organising the budget for the following financial year. Alright, so this is going to be quick. Time's not on our side today, so I'm only going to give you a few moments with at least 2 or 3 other people, so ideally groups of 4. See what you can come up with. What ideas can you think of? I'll give you some inspiration. Last time I did this in Germany, they came up with the idea of chartering a cruise ship to go around the Caribbean. They were going to have Jennifer Lopez as the act on board. There were going to be fireworks at night and unlimited food and drink for everybody. And hopefully hospitals and medication too. All right, 2 minutes, off you go. Okay, thank you. I know I didn't give you long enough. If we did this with the students, they would have considerably more time, obviously. To do feedback on this, we'll just do a show of hands. How many of you would stay in your city, in Ukraine, for this party, this event? Well, quite a few of you. How many of you would go to another country in Europe? How many of you would go to the United States? Southeast Asia? The North Pole? Another planet? Okay. How many of your parties involve lots of eating and drinking? Oh, that's good to see. How many of your parties involve having a celebrity musician? Brilliant. You can see what's happening here. All right, as I say, this is something that in many businesses, in many environments, is more important than financial planning, the party. But I have a question for you. As you did this little activity in your groups, did anyone lead the discussion in your groups? Did anyone lead the discussion? Was there a natural chairperson? Was there? Now some of you are looking embarrassed, some of you are looking at the floor thinking, oh my goodness, did I dominate the conversation? Oh no, we can't have somebody who says everything and the others say nothing. Well, let me tell you, a good meeting needs leading. It needs a chairperson. And if we want our students to do this, we need to think about what they need to effectively lead a meeting. So you can stop looking at the floor, yeah? If you led the meeting, good on you. That's brilliant. I know I didn't tell you to, but that happens naturally sometimes anyway. So yeah, if we're going to do this with students, what are they going to need? Well, they're going to need a model, a demonstration. This can be provided in the form here of audio, so they can listen and complete various exercises to give them clues as to various elements of leading a meeting. They're going to need top tips. There are various ways of thinking about top tips. These days we're thinking about student-centeredness, so the student should work it out. We shouldn't be telling our students things, or should we? I think there's a time when we could do. They expect it, so let's balance things. Yes, lots of student-centeredness, but now and again, let's give them some information. They deserve it. Here are 7 golden rules for running a meeting. These could also be used as discussion points. So for example, number 3, stop the interruption and let the first speaker finish. So do you do that or not? So conversation, top tips for running meetings. Functional language, of course. What sort of functional language do we find in a meeting like this? We're going to find things like giving opinions, agreeing, disagreeing, a bit like we did with the things to do before you die idea. Have a look at this. This is not from a Pearson publication. In fact, I invented it. It says, have a discussion. Use the following expressions. But do the students use the expressions when you present them to them like this? Of course they don't. It's much easier not to. And there's a good reason for this, you see. You were giving students lists of language, and lists of language don't often work. Why don't they work? Because there's nothing to do with this list. We're just giving them it. Look at it, yeah, right. And this actually reminds me of an everyday scenario. How many of us here write shopping lists? Any shopping list writers? Okay, have you ever had the scenario then? You've written your shopping list, 10 items on it. You've arrived at the supermarket and then you suddenly realise you've left your shopping list at home. Have you done this? We all do it, don't we? So what do? You go around the supermarket and when you get to the end of your shopping experience you realise that you've bought how many items? 20, maybe, yeah. Then you get home, you compare the 20 items you bought with the 10 items on your list. How many things are the same? 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe if you're lucky. So I think it shows that for some of us anyway, it shows that lists don't work. And I think we must assume that in class, lists don't work with our students. And that's why we've got lists here of language, useful expressions, but with something the students must do, inserting words in the gaps. In this particular case, unscrambling the words to create correct sentences and expressions. And it reminds me, a few moments ago, towards the beginning of the session, I gave you a list on the screen of reasons for communication. And I jumbled up some of the words, do you remember? One of them consisted of just one word, beginning with S. Which was it? Survival. Why do you remember that? Because it was a list with which you had to interact, you had to think about it, you had to do something, you had to think critically. And then where do we go from here? We make sure our students have practice opportunities. And in fact, I think you might recognise this one rather clearly, rather well. It says, decide on an event for an end-of-year party. Discuss what needs to be planned, a timeline for planning and action points. And all I did when I gave you this was I adapted it to make sure that money was no object. Showing, of course, that when we're working with materials, we work according to our experience, our own ideas, what students will respond to, so we adapt it. One of the nice things that follows on here, again, is a degree of critical thinking. It's an activity whereby the students are encouraged to assess each other. So each student takes a role, takes a turn at being the leader of the discussion, whilst the rest join in and assess. What I find with this, do you get your students to assess each other? No, not so much. I think it's some of those things that can be very awkward to start with. I think sometimes students feel uncomfortable. So the result can be, if you ask one student to give feedback to another, they'll say, it was perfect, it was brilliant and fantastic, hoping that then they will get similar feedback from that person. Or, what can happen sometimes is they go too far the other way. So they'll say, well, you mispronounced the word often, you said often, and that's terribly wrong. And oh, you should have paused after you said so-and-so, and your tie was slightly in the wrong position, you know. So they go into such detail. With practice, the pendulum tends to centre out, and a skill that's extremely important, basically getting the students to be able to feedback to each other, is something that's going to be useful to them once they're getting into the work environment. And let's not forget the idea of self-assessment. We mentioned this at the beginning. Critical thinking, being self-aware, student-centred learning. So here, a very structured way of doing it. We set out at the beginning to get students aware of techniques for dealing with interruptions and managing a meeting. At the end, we get the students to think about how well they did it. And resources here to allow them to do that are available there online, and in a very detailed sense, they can go through the various bullet points of the document and decide how well they achieve this. Now, if they've never done this before, it'll take time. Practice makes perfect. So, the materials, it's nearly time for me to finish actually. The materials I've been referring to in this session today, 2 courses, Speak Out. How many of you are familiar with Speak Out? Loads of you are familiar with Speak Out. So you maybe even saw the video that we used earlier on. You've probably used it with your students. Aimed at what we might call the general English audience. Business Partner. How many of you are familiar with Business Partner? How many of you were here last year and met Evan Frender, the author? Quite a few of you, okay. So Business Partner is Pearson's brand new course for workplace English. Lots of copies of all of these at the book exhibition. I'm not going to say anything more about them at the moment, other than do have a look and ask questions if you'd like to. So where have we been with this session? Well, we started with my French and German classes. We started with things like the, what was it again? I've forgotten already. This is not a lighthouse, it's a banana. Yeah. We started with where was my aunt's fountain pen. We've been through a sequence of activities whereby we've got students to actually use language for communicative outcomes, to show proficiency. We've used language that is going to be relevant and important in workplace settings. We have quite heavily looked at the 4 C's, the idea of communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. I won't go through the session in fine detail to illustrate all those, I'll leave you to reflect. But I'm going to leave you with one last video. Would you like a serious video or an amusing video? It's a silly question, isn't it, really? I never get people saying, I want a serious video, please. No, I think this is quite a funny video. This is originally an advert for public transport, but as you're about to see, it shows the 4 C's very clearly in action, in this case, in the animal kingdom, with the ultimate goal of survival. Enjoy.
Smarter than traveling groups.
How sadistic. Nevertheless, it does show the 4 C's pretty clearly in action, doesn't it? So I'd like to thank you very, very much for your attention, for your participation. Enjoy the rest of the conference and see you around. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A great pleasure to have such a speaker and such a guest. For those of you who are leaving the room, we are just on the lottery time now. And you have a good chance. So, thanks again, Rob, and we are looking forward to your tomorrow's session. Is that on soft skills? Is that right? Yeah? Great. Okay, well, in case you haven't registered for tomorrow event but really want to come and see Rob, I think we can do something about it. Right, now, so we've had the plenary, lots of serious issues on reforms. Now we have had a fantastic interactive lecture ahead. There are workshops, but between, well, I am very pleased to ask onto the stage the owner, the founder, and the managing director of the Internal Education, Sean Harty.
Hi everybody. Thank you, Rob, that was very good. So it's lottery time. So shall we start, shall we?
Okay, well, so, you know, it's our good tradition to have some lottery and not one, and there are different ways we have tried and done it. This time, we decided to make it a very personal one. And while we were watching the lectures and talks, my colleagues from the registration were cutting the stuff into 450 pieces of paper, because this is the number of participants registered today. Well, so now is that you? Well, taken out. Well, we are going to do the following. We've got 5 for the first round only. We've got 5 fantastic titles. Oops. And 1 bottle. Okay, good. So, we've got 5 books, well, and all of them are with the interactive online platform, My Lab, which you have heard so much about today. We're going to pick up the names, and there are real names and towns. We will see who, well, is the lucky ones then to check on you what they're using the My Lab, if we are lucky to find you. Well, and if we pick up the name and the person has left, because I see that some have left, we will take another card, so maybe more than 5 in the end. Well, and now, am I to read the name, or will you, Sean? Okay, so,
I forgot my glasses.
5 people, 5 books with My Lab, and I will call out 5 names straight away. Okay, well, so, the first book is for Галина Студінська, Київський національний торговельно-економічний університет. Oh, well, that's the host, right? That is a good choice. Where is Galina? Please do join us here. Well, I will keep calling out the names, and then 5 lucky ones ones are here. Okay, number 2.
Number 2?
Don't tell me that another тогово-экономический университет. No. This is, okay, Оксана Биконя, Академія Державної пенітенціарної служби України. Okay, well, yes. Right. It's a good chance to see how many universities and institutions are here today. Well, you are kidding. Wow, could you? I'm sorry, guys. Wow. That's again Київський національний тогово-экономический університет. Well, and this is Svetlana Mamchenko. What is Svetlana?
Is she here?
Sorry, well, no, Svetlana is not getting it. Well, and now Margarita Boyko. But this is again from the same university. Are they? Well, this is not funny. Well, are these all the 400 pesos? But Margarita Boyko, is she here with us?
No, she's not here.
Could you pick up these two? Well, just in case they are, well, the possible winners. How many? How many have you heard? How many teachers are there in the Department of Foreign Languages here? Okay, 60. It's quite fair. All right, well. Наталія Кувшинова, Національний педагогічний університет імені Драгоманова. Пані Наталія, можна бачити? That's getting interesting. Okay. Sorry, guys.
We're going to be here all day.
Well, we will survive. Another one. So, Переяслав-Хмельницький Державний педагогічний університет. And this is Наталія Борисова. It's you two all choosing now the trade in economics so smartly, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, well, so have you found another trade in economics? Okay. No, we haven't. Well, this is Lviv. And this is Ірина Карамишева, Національний університет Львівська політехніка. Okay, and the last, right? Okay. And Черкаський національний університет імені Богдана Хмельницького. And this is Ірина Негоза. Пані Ірина, join us here. Well, congratulations. We have a nice collection. And surprise, surprise, all of the teachers are from universities, not PLSs, and not, school teachers. Can I ask you ladies to join me here for a nice photo? Okay. No, it doesn't work. Well, I'm sorry. А ми можемо затемнити екран? Ні, нормально? Окей, well. So this is for you, and for you, and for you. And could you please step back? Well, we could give another round of applause, wouldn't we? Thank you very much. The final one, careful, Roma. Fantastic. All right, thank you very much. Now, okay. You know, well, that's funny. We've seen that there are quite a few teachers from not only universities and higher educational institutions, but also the private language schools, private teachers, tutors, the secondary schools, and we thought, well, this event is has been thought as an event for higher institutions, higher education institutions. That's why our main prize today, and you know which one is the key prize, is to get to the higher education, because this is the special event. So we made our registration guys work hard and asked them to prepare another selection of only higher educations here. So we got 78 today, it seems to me, from 19 oblasts, from 19 districts all around Ukraine. And will you announce what's that?
So yes, the prize is actually 4 days in London. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to go to Buckingham Palace and go to Harrods and drink lots of tea. There is a little bit of work. You have to come and visit our office, well not our office, but Pearson's office in the Strand. Has anybody been to London before? You have that? Yeah, of course you have, yeah.
Okay, so you are...
Yeah. So the Strand, you'll be staying in the Strand Hotel which is obviously in the Strand. And my grandmother used to have a pub across the road called the Coal Hole, and it's very nice and busy. So we're going to choose somebody now, and you will be going to London. We'll organise where you want to go, and we're paying for everything. Okay? So there you go, it's a nice prize. So who is going to be the lucky person? Because the name that I pick out now has to be in the hall to claim the prize, okay? Alright, so, it's a bit difficult.
That's something more serious than a book.
Okay, so. Only you. Okay.
Okay, and this is Київський політехнічний інститут імені Ігоря Сікорського, Київ, Світлана Жицька.
Come on down, sir. I hope you have your passport ready. I am going to ask you one question which you must get the answer right to, okay? Do you want to go to London?
Definitely.
Okay, you want, yeah. Have you been to London before?
Yes, I was lucky to be in London due to the British Council.
Ooh. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this is. Thank you very much, Sveta.
Thank you. Well, you are a very lucky person, as I can see. Okay, well, now.
And by the way, you will be flying by Ukrainian International Airlines. It's not Wizz Air. You don't have to go to Luton Airport, which is the worst airport in the world, okay? So straight to Gatwick, on the train to Victoria Station, taxi to the Strand, okay? Right, fantastic.
Okay, we are almost ready to go to our workshops, but I can see that we have one more. Something looking terribly like the previous one, yeah? Well, but no more motorists for today. So who is it for?
Well, this is a special presentation to our hosts, actually, for being fantastic hosts and looking after us. So it's for somebody here at the...
Кафедра іноземної філології та перекладу Київського національного торгівельно-економічного університету. Can we ask someone on stage? Пані Люба, ми вас вітаємо всі, і не тільки ми втрьох на сцені, правда? Ми вас вітаємо і дуже дякуємо за співпрацю.
We'll have to find somebody who hasn't been to London next time, you know?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Just before I go, I'll be speaking tomorrow about reform, and I just want to encourage you to take your photographs as much as possible with the special Pearson wall, Inspire, Innovate, you know, all those things there. And you broke the spinner. Spin to win is now broken. Who broke it? It's broken, okay? Thank you. That was the longest queue I've ever seen. Longer than the one for the women's toilet even, you know? So well done.
Okay, well, now some time before the workshops, more consultation stands, coffee, chats, photos, and I hope to see you here tomorrow to listen to our guest speaker, to have more fun and more communication. Thank you very much, good luck with the workshops.